everyone, welcome to another conversation here. Tony with Rebel Financial for our live broadcast. I talked about this subject a couple weeks ago, and I said it was called Car Talk with Tony, and I am not mechanical. It has nothing to do with cars. I had come across an article that talked about how much as Americans we spend on automobiles, not just the increased cost of actual cars themselves, but all the other things that come with owning a vehicle. So I thought, well, heck, what if we didn't spend so much on cars, since really we do a poor job as Americans of preparing for retirement. So I wanted to take a deeper look at that, and this is what that's about. So anyway, that's the overview, right? So what I thought I would do at first is kind of give an overview, very general, of where we are as Americans in terms of being prepared for retirement, all right? So the first thing I want to say is I came across this study by Charles Schwab. They interviewed a bunch of people that are clients, and what was interesting is when they asked people what they thought they would need for retirement, the average amount was $2 million, okay? A huge figure. I mean, that's most people, and I mean most people don't have that, much less anywhere near it. What was also interesting was baby boomers thought you needed 1.9 million, which I thought was really funny because half of the baby boomers are already retired, so why would they think they need that much more money when they're already half retired anyway? But regardless, so that's some of the backdrop of what people think they need and really kind of how far we are from that number. So let me go to the screen real quick. I want to show you this chart here. So that was what people said they need, but this is the reality. This study comes out every 3 years from the Federal Reserve, and I kept waiting for the new one because the last one was 2017 September, but it's probably not out to the end of this month. So this is from that, but regardless, take a look at this. If we look at the average age of baby boomers alone, the median age is probably 200,000, right, if we combine these two age groups. And median being half have more than this and half have less. And I'm using the median because the average is over here, but the average is really skewed. I looked up Bezos, the owner of Amazon, and he's in this category. So Bill Gates, I think Warren Buffett's over 75, so he's down in this category. But that's why the average is not so useful. But look at this. I mean, this is not a very high number, especially when you consider these people say that you should have $1.9 million to retire. And then you can see up here as well, less than 35, the median net worth is $11,000. So people are way behind even starting out of the gate. Of course, at that age, they have a lot, student loans and things like that, so they're getting a slow start. But anyway, so that is how much people need and where they're really prepared, or how much they think they need. So let me clarify that, because most people don't need that much, okay? Certainly, unless you have horrific spending habits, you're going to get by with a lot less. So one more thing I want to inject in here is I went and ran some numbers, and basically, and I'm going to use this later, but I want to just frame this. If a 25-year-old who's going to retire at 65 starts saving at an 8% interest, they need to put away like $300 a month to get to the $1 million mark. If they wait till like 35, they've got to start, it's almost like $800 where they need to start putting it away. I'm only making the point that it seems like a lot of money, but when we talk about what is spent on cars, that's what I'm trying to show to people, that there's a way to kind of shift some of this so that you could set yourself up for retirement, a comfortable retirement. So let me talk about now what we actually spend on cars. So it's categorized between new and used. And used cars we're spending on average just above $20,000. On new cars, it's about $38,000. And what I read that was interesting, it isn't so much that the price of a specific car is going up a lot. It's just that we, as Americans, keep buying more expensive vehicles. We keep stepping up in the vehicle that we have. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Another thing, as I get into the cost of this, if we can now go one more time here, this will be the last chart I need to show. This is the financing of cars, okay? And so what's interesting here, this is from 2009 to 19, so it ended last year. If at the lower end of financing in terms of time, under 5 years and under is about 28%. So that leaves about 72% between 6, 7, and 8, and even 9 years. And so look at this trade-off. How many less people finance for 5 years, and how many more people are financing for 7 years? The 6 years, for whatever reason, stay consistent. And then alarming, but still not too bad, that 1.5% are actually using 8 or 9 years. It's almost like a mini mortgage at that point to buy a vehicle, right? That's just nuts. So anyway, so let's come back. But that's a problem. By the way, this ended in 19, and I did see something for this year that said that 8 to 9% has increased like another 30% alone just this year, okay? A lot of delinquencies, they've been going up. Of course, COVID is not helping any of that, but it's just an ongoing problem. So one other aspect, now that's the specific car itself, right? That's the specific purchase of the car. But the reality is, ownership on an annual basis, it was calculated on average to be about $9,200. Now that includes the purchase of the car, right? So if you got $500 payment, that's $6,000 a year. Then you also have insurance. The more expensive and newer your car, the more that's going to be. Of course, you have your gas and your maintenance. And I know there is a trade-off, right? If you have a new car, you're not going to have the maintenance. But nonetheless, the cost of owning and paying for a car isn't just the car itself, right? There's a lot of costs. So $9,200 a year, average for a new car. Compared that to what I said you needed to put away to be a millionaire at the age of 65, if you start at the age of 25, and that is only, basically for $3,900 a year, okay? So $3,900 a year, if you put that away every year starting at 25, you'll be a millionaire with an 8% interest rate by the time you're 65. But we spend so much money on cars, people are often complaining, I can't afford to put money away for retirement, yet they're driving a brand new car and not thinking about the consequences of that. So anyway, that's part of what I wanted to get into. An encouraging thing that I found was actually the average length of ownership of a vehicle. So going back to 2006, a used vehicle was owned for 38 months, okay, a little over 3 years. But when we look in 2019, that was up to 70 months. So that almost doubled to almost 6 years, right? So that's good. People are driving their car longer. But I think they're also buying more expensive cars and financing it longer. A new car went from 54 months, so basically, what's that, a little more than 4.5 years, something like that, to 80 months. So a little less than 7 years. Incidentally, a funny side note, the average marriage is about 8.8 years. So we're keeping our spouses a little longer than we're keeping our new cars. But that's probably going to get eclipsed, and I don't know if that's good or bad, but that was just something that somebody pointed out in one of the articles. One last point I want to make about all these people financing cars is that nowadays 33% of the financing is underwater when they start. So in other words, people are going in there and saying, okay, not only do I want to finance this car that I can't afford, but please throw in money from the last loan as well. It's an average of like $3,000 to $4,000 on top of it. So really what should be a good habit is putting money down to lower the car payment. At least 33% are coming in there underwater, which probably means there's still a good percent that aren't putting anywhere near the 10 or 20% down. So that part of it, I just want to make how much we are spending on cars. And it's really, if it's diverted to some degree, then that alone will get you a really good retirement. And 2 weeks ago when we talked, Phil was joking, people want that new car smell. I get it. But cars get old to all of us. If you're one of these people that have the habit of always needing a new car, it's a sacrifice, and that sacrifice is going to be found in retirement in many cases. So I thought what I would do is just share a couple common sense things that you could think about when you're purchasing a car. The big thing to me is I'm always about automating your finances so that you're putting your retirement money away and not messing with that, and then from there figuring out what you can actually afford with a vehicle. So if you really want to take a look at somebody, what the experts would say you should afford in terms of your car, it's really about 10% of your income is what you should spend on a car often. And so if somebody's making $150,000, so it was a little more play than that, right? Because you could afford a decent car if you're making 150. But the point of the article was try not to go much more than 10%. That's really what you're doing. So it can be very difficult at the lower end, but that was their rule of thumb. I think that's a little extreme, but still. But a couple of suggestions, right? You have your car. Just hold on to it for a little longer, especially if you still have payments on it. Stretch it out. I don't care if it's months. If you could do it for a couple years, I mean, that is ideal. Get in the habit of finishing the payments on your car and having it for a long time, but also keeping the payments up, but now paying yourself, so that you're building a savings account that when you go to buy a car, you'll actually be able to put money down and really lower the payments, if you can't just buy a used car and pay it outright. So that's another suggestion. And stop buying a new if it's not something you can simply afford. There are so many good used vehicles out there now. In fact, the average age of cars on the road is 11 years. So just think, if you own an 11-year-old car, which I happen to own, I'm right in the middle. I doubt my car has 11 more years, but it can, according to these statistics. So I think that's great. As I said before too, I didn't do this in any order, so I'm kind of going back here. If you do buy a new car, plan on driving it for a long time. Make sure it fits your situation. So in other words, if you're a young family and you're going to have several kids, but you don't have them yet, don't go buy a small car that you're going to have to trade in a few years to get the minivan. Suck it up, I guess, and save for a while, so that you could then afford to have the right vehicle. So, but think more in terms of what is going to be useful and what is going to better fit your needs and not just your wants, because you can have that car that you want for years. In fact, I thought about myself, the two nicest, most expensive cars I purchased were in my 20s and 30s. And they weren't that expensive, but if I had been thinking in terms of that age, instead of shifting money into savings, I would be far better off today. So, but I didn't do that too often, so I guess I'm not too far off. So, but anyway, so that is my car talk. I'm happy, a lot of what we do for clients is when they are purchasing or thinking about a car, we kind of go through the calculation on what makes sense. At what point do you get rid of the old car, and then what can you afford, and what should you be looking at, and how to finance the car. There's still a lot of ways to finance a car to at least save yourself some money, and even how to just purchase the car, how to go through the whole process. So we help a lot of people with that. We'd love to help you with it, so just reach out to us if you do need that help. So anyway, thanks again. I love doing these financial planning meetings, and we'll talk to you next month as well. Take care.